Okay. All right, so I don't know if I should be seeing other students here. All right, I don't see anyone else, but I'll go ahead and okay, well, welcome. Okay, welcome, whoever is out there. Thank you for joining us. We just want to thank you for coming and participating in the virtual college exploration for Indiana students. You can go ahead and sign up for more sessions. This one is one of many college presentations offered, and you can check out the additional schedule for the next few weeks at inacac.org/virtual-college-exploration. The recording will be available. All sessions are being recorded and will be available at that website and right there. So how do you ask questions? Please use the Q&A button to type in your questions to the presenters at any time throughout this presentation. Please make sure your camera and microphone are off. You should be muted and your video is off. The panelists cannot see or hear you.
Hi, welcome. My name is Sarah Rowe. I get to serve as the Director of Admissions at Anderson University. And we are gathering together tonight to talk to you about the myths and misconceptions that you have maybe heard about what it means to attend a Christian college or university. Hopefully we can share some information with you that will kind of bring that information to reality and just get you moving forward as you're doing this whole journey of searching for schools virtually and doing visits in person and walking through this journey. So like I said, I get to serve as the Director of Admissions at Anderson University, and my absolute favorite thing about AU is the community of people that have come together to build up and work with students and believe in them and push them forward in their personal, professional, and faith goals. So I'll pass it off. We have everyone this evening, we have our myth box where we'll be pulling out our myths to shed light onto why that is a myth and what you can look for in a college. And I will pass this one off.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elisa Tracy. I am the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Grace College. Very excited to be here with you guys tonight and help you understand what attending a Christian college really means and some of the great opportunities that you'll have at a faith-based school. My favorite thing about Grace, hands down, is our location. We live in the beautiful village of Winona Lake, Indiana, and one of the traditions that we have every year is when students come to campus, we have what's called Lake Days. So we actually invite everyone down to the lake, we rent paddle boards and kayaks, and we have a really good time out on the water during the few weeks of Indiana summer that we get when everybody moves on campus. So I can't wait to share with you more about Grace College as we talk today, and I'll pass it over to Austin.
Oh, like I said, I'm Austin Protzman. I am from Indiana Wesleyan University. I am an admissions counselor, and I like to put it simply and metaphorically, I am just a gateway for students to college. And I'll share one of my favorite memories from my time as a student at Indiana Wesleyan. It's actually the moment I moved in. I walked into the residence hall while staff just moved my entire meager possessions into the room that I was going to stay in. But I walked in and I actually asked my RA, I'm like, hey, what do I do? And he's like, hey, what's your name? And I said, Austin. And he said, Austin's home. And at the top of his lungs, he and the rest of the hall start shouting and banging on the table. And at that moment, I was like, okay, this can actually be a home for me. That was really cool. So I felt really, really loved it in that moment.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing your guys' stories a little bit. I believe we're all alumni of the universities that we represent. So just goes to show the love that you can have when you go to a smaller campus and get plugged in really well. So just to note again, if you'd like to ask any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and we'll have time toward the end of our programming. We've got a few myths already sorted out that are our most frequently asked questions that we get in the world of admissions. So I'm going to dive into what is probably one of the biggest and most common myths that we hear. And we get this from a lot of families saying, I can't afford a Christian college. So would either of you like to go ahead and kind of explain and debunk that myth for us?
I would love to, Sarah. When students come to me and they say, I can't afford going to a Christian college, I'm not even going to look, I'm not even going to apply, I know that I can't pay to go to a private school. I want to say, just give us a chance, because we will show you at private colleges that you can afford a private college, and it is much more financially possible than you think it is from the get-go. I get to talk to all of my local students here in Warsaw about that every day. So what you'll see at private colleges is private colleges are more likely to give out more scholarships and much more generous scholarships than an in-state public school. So even though our starting costs may seem a lot higher, trust me, that number is going to come a lot lower once you get your financial aid. In addition to that, when you file the FAFSA, if you are an Indiana State resident, I know that all three of these colleges are able to partner with Indiana and federal aid to make the cost of attending a private school much more affordable than you would ever think. Specifically to Grace, we have the ability for our students to come and graduate with most of our majors in just 3 years. That's actually what I did at Grace College. It's not because I'm a superhero and I'm a crazy academic driven student. It's just because the program worked. We have offered a class schedule so that students can take a full load of classes without feeling overwhelmed and save at least a semester, if not an entire year, on the cost of their education. So I do want to encourage you guys, if you've already written Christian colleges off your list, don't let the price tag scare you. All three of us are going to work with you to make sure that the cost is possible for you and do everything we can to help get that price tag down.
I think to add to that, there's probably a couple other options for scholarship that you can look into. One of which I know of is church matching scholarships that our colleges all participate in. So it's never a bad idea to ask your church, hey, I'm going to go to this college and this is how I want to use that education to affect the world, which is a great essay, by the way. You never know, maybe a small little church is be like, yeah, we'll give you $100. And then when a college matches that, that's a pretty significant chunk of change. So I'd say always ask, conversation is free.
Totally agree. Thanks, guys. And even to piggyback off of that, Austin, I know that a lot of colleges will have their own specific like program scholarships that you can apply for. So do your research. If you get on the websites and look into the scholarship page, you may find that there's a random tiny scholarship that has been funded by a family that loves the university, and you meet all of the criteria. And I always encourage students, even if you don't 100% meet the criteria, still apply for the scholarship, because you never know if you're the only person applying for that. And then also remember, on every college website, there's a net price calculator where you can actually put in some pretty detailed information about you and your family, and get a pretty good estimate of what the full-on cost of the university is going to be before even any of those third-party scholarships may come into play. So definitely be your own advocate and be the squeaky wheel and ask a lot of questions, because there's money out there and we always love to work with families and help them figure out how we make it all possible.
Yeah, the perk of working with a Christian college through the financial aid process is we are going to be able to work much more personally with you. So we can't wait to hear your stories and see what we can do for you guys as a family and as a student looking at our schools.
As us admissions counselors who are graduates of our university, I think we take personal care to be like, I want to make it as affordable as possible for all the students I interact with, because I've been there. I've done that. So I'm going to grab another question from our little myth box. I'm going to go ahead. The myth is, I have to be some kind of super Christian to go to a Christian college and really fit in with that atmosphere.
So I would love to address this. Personally, when I was looking for schools, I did not grow up in a family that attended church regularly. We did when I was really young, but I knew like the big Bible stories, like Noah built the ark, 2 by 2, the animals went on, that kind of situation. And when I came to Anderson, I was a little nervous, honestly, that I wasn't going to fit in, and I didn't know the words to all the songs that were sung. But what I found was a community of people that really just wrapped their arms around me and welcomed me in, and had no expectations of who I was supposed to be when I first got there, but really just wanted to speak into my life and give me a lot of opportunity to grow and ask questions. And I was never made to feel like I was less than because I had to ask questions and say like, okay, can someone please repronounce Nebuchadnezzar as a name? That didn't make sense to me. So yeah, it was definitely not a precursor requirement as far as coming into the university, for sure.
I know, speaking specifically at Grace, we have students from all different types of backgrounds here, whether that's different church denominations or students who have never gone to church. They didn't grow up in a Christian home, but something about Grace brought them here, and it being a faith-based school was kind of just a cherry on top or an extra addition. We are a really genuine Christian college, and what that means at Grace day to day is something that Sarah said too, that you can be authentic about your questions and about where you're at in your faith. That was something that was exciting for me. I was a Christian before I came to Grace, but there was a lot of things about my faith that I had questions about. And I was surrounded by people who loved me even when I didn't deserve it, and were willing to help me answer those questions and not be afraid or angry with me when I didn't know everything about the Bible or where I disagreed and had doubts. They were willing to walk alongside me and help me with that. So you do not need to be a super Christian to go to Grace. As long as you're open to faith and willing to interact with it, then any of these schools would be a good fit for you.
Along the same lines, I also went to a Christian school as a Christian. I actually went to study pastoral ministry. So my story was like, this sounds like the right place, a school in Indiana where I could learn to be a pastor. But one of the things that I looked at in my college search was, and kind of like kept my ear to the ground for, was that the college wouldn't force that upon me. Part of my story is I want people to make that decision for themselves. I want them to be able to say, this is why I believe what I believe, and this is how I've thought it out. And so that was something that drew me to looking at schools that you see here today and some of the other Christian schools that we interact with. It was that it is a faith community and it's a central part to what they do, but it is never this overarching, like, you have to jive with this, otherwise you're really going to struggle here. Like we've said, we at Indiana Wesleyan University, you do not have to profess faith, but you do have to, we ask that you understand that is what our community is. You do not have to buy in, but we ask that you respect that that's what we do here. And a lot of students come in and they do not profess faith, and they're incredibly successful while they're here. So, yeah.
No, that's awesome. I love hearing those stories and encouraging you guys that, going to a Christian college is going to have the same opportunities for you, if not better. And in addition to that, you get to grow personally and spiritually as well. So that's really exciting. So I have another myth out of our myth box here. The next myth says, there are too many rules at a Christian college and I won't be able to have any fun. So who wants to take that myth for us?
So this myth always makes me giggle a little bit, because the misconception that there are so many rules and it's just so constricting to live in these faith communities. It's very similar. As Austin said, we don't require a statement of faith. We do ask that students agree to certain lifestyle expectations. And it's pretty similar to even if you were a student athlete at your high school. The IHSAA asks that student athletes abstain from drug and alcohol use. We ask the same of our students. So it's not like we're trying to tell you, you have to live exactly within these guidelines and it's super duper strict information that you can't be who you are as a person. It's just, how do we live in this community within some loose restrictions that kind of guide us along the way to make sure we're successful?
Yeah, I feel like a piece of this myth is about like, Christian colleges put all these rules because that's what the whole Christian life is. It's just a bunch of rules. And so the college puts these in place just to restrict what you want to do. But I would speak for all of our colleges represented here that the reason that we have certain lifestyle community expectations that you even mentioned is it's this idea of community learning. So I actually looked up some of our community learning literature so I could read off what IWU says about it. And so I definitely, did the bad thing and I copy and pasted some of our material that we talk to students that are here about, but I thought it'd be helpful here. But community is a core of our commitments at IWU. We believe that living together with other people in community leaves us different and helps us grow in ways we cannot do on our own. We believe that faith and learning and recreation and creativity are all communal activities, things that we should do together and need each other for, in order to best serve our students and to create a place of scholarship and learning that honors Christ. Indiana Wesleyan University is committed to maintaining an environment in which every community member experiences respect and dignity and worth. So in practice, this looks like we refuse to condone disparaging language, harassment, or bullying of one another. We set these standards in place that it's a community where you're supposed to serve and protect and have this framework where students can learn and practice quality living with others. This practice and framework are helpful for students as they begin interacting with the world at large and creating a larger network. So students are establishing this while they're in school so that when they graduate, they're able to insert themselves into different communities globally and be a positive impact on who they would call neighbors and acquaintances later on in life.
And I think to build on what Austin was saying, a lot of the community lifestyle standards that we set in place are really just to keep you safe and to keep you focused. There is so much fun to be had and such amazing community to be experienced and cultivated on a Christian campus. And some of those lifestyle statements, really aren't that difficult to deal with. At Grace, we are a dry campus, and we understand that that's not written out in the Bible as a command from God, but we have decided that that's a good standard for our community because of the atmosphere that we want to create. And our students aren't resentful of that. They come here for that reason because they want to be able to be part of a genuine community that have those type of values. So we integrate our spiritual focus into real life. I always describe Grace as a down-to-earth Christian college. We're comfortable here. You'll be able to come here and be yourself. You're not going to feel as if you're living in a bubble. We want you guys to be prepared for real life. And sometimes following lifestyle expectations is exactly what you're going to experience after you graduate from college. So Sarah, tell us a little bit about what type of fun you get to have at a Christian college.
So I always say to students, like, if you're coming in and you can't find a way to find the activity that is fun for you, then you're not trying. You're staying in your room and you're just kind of locking the door and locking yourself away. Because I think all three of us have these very intentional campuses where we have faculty and staff that really want to pour into student life and give opportunities to have fun and be involved and be engaged. So we've got activities, I know at Anderson, especially like our campus activities board, we lovingly call them CAB. they run our intramural program, and intramurals at AU are competitive to the point where we have a scrub league and a pro league. And if you're just here to have fun, don't step on the pro league kind of team. And then there's also tons of social service clubs where you can go and kind of find that more fraternity sorority type environment with all of the positives, none of the negatives of like sticky frat house and that kind of stuff. But that group of people that you build community with, that walks through this college journey with you, and supports you and pushes you along the way. So, and I also encourage students, if there's something that you love and you're active in it and it's not a club on campus, make it one. This is your experience. The years that you spend in college, you can't get them back. So definitely talk to the campus, whatever activity board you have, to see about creating a new archery club or sewing club or whatever it may be, because chances are, going to a smaller school, it's not going to take very many people to have a new recognized club on campus. All right, and I'm going to lead us into our next myth. My personal favorite Christian college myth that I ever hear is people only go to a Christian school to find a spouse.
So I'm definitely part of that. Found my spouse here, and now we both work here. But that is, I think, just a fun one that people say, because you're like going to a Christian college and there's just good people, and you're like, they love the Lord and they're about what I'm about. So it makes a lot of sense that people find spouses at college. So I guess that myth is kind of true. They don't go there for just that, but there's a little piece that I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. People don't go to college to find a spouse.
I will help you bust that myth and let you know I did not find my spouse at Grace. But, I think there's a deep truth to that you're going to be surrounded by like-minded people and people who are supporting you and walking alongside you in your values. So if not a spouse, you're going to find some really deep, lifelong friends at your Christian college.
So you may not find your spouse at a Christian college, but you'll find your groomsmen and your bridesmaids. Let's go to another myth. Here, I'll pass the box. This one makes a lot of sense for our jobs. I won't receive as good of an education at Christian college as I will at a public institution. So I have a lot of students who ask, like, is the education here going to get me into the field that I want to do outside of ministry?
I'm so glad you brought this one up, because we do hear it all the time where students, they hear about the state schools and they've got the big name associated with their business program or their engineering or science program. I know sciences are one that we hear a lot, like, I can't study science at a Christian college, but science and religion can live together. Students can practice to become great engineers, great doctors, and still walk in their faith while expanding their education. I know at Anderson, we've got some really phenomenal science programs. Our nursing program is actually on its second year in a row of being named the best nursing school in the state of Indiana. We've got an engineering program that's fully ABET accredited, which is huge for a small Christian school. And then also our students that are pursuing degrees that will take them on to med school. Every single one of them that gets a faculty recommendation gets into the med school of their choice. So it's not just that they're going down the street to whatever the closest med program may be or closest grad program. It's they're getting into the one that they've dreamed about since before even going to college. And I think that speaks into just how much you work right alongside your faculty and they get to know you as a person and how effective you are in your role. That's not to say that every single student gets a faculty recommendation. They're going to have hard conversations with students if they're struggling, but it's never going to be a hard conversation of, there's no way you're ever going to be able to do this. It's the conversation of how do we work together to get you to the point where you want to be so you can be successful working in your field.
Like I mentioned in asking this question, but a piece that I'd like to talk about in this is the idea that Christian schools are only good for producing ministry majors or people who want to go out and maybe do medical missions, but their focus is ministry. And I think how we would say it in a lot of our schools and how I would kind of looks at it is that God did not design Christians and humans with only pastors in mind. In fact, more Christians should not be pastors than there are pastors. Christian college it has just as much of a time and effort built into its framework to develop Christians to go outside of the church walls and be effective where they're at. So we would have just as high of a calling to create good doctors, excellent teachers. I know a lot of our schools have excellent teaching programs as well as nursing programs. So like, if our goal is to go out and affect the world, we don't want to just affect the Christian pocket of it. We want to be everywhere. So I pulled up a couple of examples, but our design program, I think, really encapsulates this well, but learning to maintain your technical abilities, observing and analyzing current graphic design trends, and seeking an understanding of your profession in the light of God's leading in your life and career will be stressed as we work with you to prepare you for a career in the exciting and ever-changing design world. And while you're here at one of the fastest growing Christian college and universities in the country, you'll be a part of God's unfolding story as you set out to discover God's grand design for your life. So where I think Christian colleges do really well in non-ministry things is that it's not just a vocation that you're learning in college and practicing in college. It's so much more encompassing and holistic in your life that it's not just, we're going to go give you the skills in this small little bracket to do this job. It's like, we're going to give you that and be excellent at that, but also what is everything else and how can that not just go out and be this, but do this well and affect the kingdom well. So, yeah.
And I think that if you talk with a professor from any of our schools, you'll learn right away that you're going to be in good hands academically. You do not need to go to a big state school to have a good resume and to be prepared for your career after you graduate. I would even argue that going to a college with our type of atmosphere where you get personal interaction with the professors, where professors are not trying to weed you out and make you fail, they're trying to help you succeed, and you have a collaborative learning atmosphere with other students in your class, I would argue that that atmosphere is actually even better for you as a graduate when you're applying to grad schools and where you're competing with other people for jobs for those first seat interviews. At Grace, a couple programs that I love to highlight are our education and our business program. Our elementary education graduates have a 100% placement rate every school that they apply to. And our 100% placement rate also drifts over to our business program. And I think a part of that is because at Grace, we focus a lot on internships and applied learning. So in college, we want to get you connected with what you're doing after you graduate. If you walk across the stage with a piece of paper that says you have your degree, but no experience to put on your resume or any type of internship, we haven't done a very good job helping you grow as a professional and get you ready for the real world. So we have something that's called the Center for Career Connections that is solely devoted to connecting you with job experiences and then also helping you build those soft skills that Austin was talking about, that professional resume, the ability to work well in teams, interview skills, lots of different things that you don't necessarily take a class on. And maybe at state schools, you're kind of on your own to have to try to build up yourself. At Grace, we put a really big emphasis on making sure that happens in your curriculum and in your education so that you graduate as a standout student. Our medical program always makes the comparison that if one student can get a seat in the med program at Ball State for graduate school, and they're going up against 2 Ball State graduates, a Grace College student is going to get that seat. So I know that you guys are going to be in good hands with all 3 of our schools when it comes to our education.
I love that you said that the professors don't want to see you fail. I think that speaks volumes to all three of our campuses of just, they want to see you succeed. And that way you can write back and see them at homecoming the next year or whatever and tell them, guess where I'm working, and just keep connected. Okay, so tons of wonderful myths, and we want to leave some time for our participants to submit questions to us. Again, down in the Q&A box, feel free to submit any questions that you have, and we will answer them for you. So if we can give a moment for that to happen. Okay, so one of the things that I've gotten is that Christian colleges can sometimes seem a little closed-minded, maybe a little stuffy kind of feel. Would either of you want to speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm sure both Austin and I have stories about that. I'll go ahead and start briefly by telling you kind of what Grace does for their chapel. I think this is a really good example of Grace preparing their students for what's going on in the world. As Christians, it would be a complete disservice to our students if we were actually blocking them off from being able to talk about current issues and integrating their faith into them. So our chapel layout on Tuesdays, we actually have something called roundtables, where we discuss issues in culture and how we should respond to them, knowing what we know to be true about Jesus Christ and about the Bible. So if there is a better time than any to talk about current issues, I think it's 2020. So what does it look like to respond to a pandemic? What does it look like to respond to a very heated election season? And follow Jesus and be able to sit in those differences with people who also believe the same things as we do, but then those who don't. So like I said at the beginning, it would be a disservice if we didn't prepare our students how to do that. And I think that that is one way to break that myth that Christian colleges are not closed-minded. We are trying to prepare you just as much as a state school would be so that you can go out into the world and stand your own in what you believe and be able to defend that, but also lovingly live amongst others who maybe don't believe the same things as you do.
I think a point that you hit on, and I want to also kind of go after, is that at universities like ours, there isn't just we allow whatever you guys want to talk about to be talked about, but we encourage the discussion. It's very much like you guys are here not just to learn, but to develop, and part of that development is what you believe and what you think. And at colleges that are our size, that are more than 10 people, you're going to have somebody in the room who doesn't think the exact same way you do. And so when you're encouraged to let's have a healthy discussion where people can care and love for each other afterwards, and let's set up spaces for that, is really cool. So I like the round table thing you mentioned. One that we just had is we actually have a large common area that's multi-purpose and students study there. But the other day, our BSU Black Student Union actually set up a week-long protest where they marched on some days. Monday they did a march and chant. Wednesday they did a silent march, and then on Friday the event culminated in a students sharing stories section, and it was very well attended by not just students, but staff and faculty went to show support for the students and their opportunity to speak out, which I thought was really cool and not something that fits the narrative of a stuffy little college. So I thought that was a moment of really exempling, this is what we are asking students to do, not just come and learn, but to come and speak and develop these conversations. So I like that you mentioned that it's asked for at our schools.
Yeah, it's asked for, and we're creating the environment where students can feel safe to talk about their opinions. We never would want a student to go into a roundtable discussion and then be berated by fellow students or by staff. We welcome the questions, we welcome discussion, and diversity of thought and perspectives, because your perspective may not be another person's, but the way that we find common ground is just through discussion, and understanding and loving one another, for sure. Let's see. So I don't have any new questions from our participants yet, but I am curious, would each of us want to share why we chose the college that we chose?
I kind of mentioned this a little earlier, but a big reason I chose my college is because I wanted a college that gave me opportunity. And actually, our chancellor here at school, he often speaks about our school as a school of opportunity. And I think, often is speaking academically, where students who are on, maybe one end of the spectrum, where it's like, school is difficult for me and I work really hard and I force my way through a test. So we have services and different kinds of things set up, like free mental health counseling and tutoring for these students for free, and trio programs that I'm sure exist at all of our schools to help coach students through. And not just like, we're going to help you limp along, but we really want to help students have the tools to be successful. And we put it out in front of them instead of just waiting for them to ask, which is really cool. But I think also in the opportunities for personal growth as well as professional development, we each have our own career development offices, and the way that our Res Life is structured is to, really help students learn in community, but also develop who they are in their communities. So that's something that I was looking for, and I really found a lot of that opportunity at IWU, in just the amount of things offered to the students here to really have that personal development. And then that challenge as well, because there's the other side of the spectrum where it's like, I walk in and it's easy for me. Like, I forgot we had a test today, but I'm gonna ace it anyway. I was not that student, but they do exist here. I was friends with a lot of them. That's why I probably graduated. I took advantage of the resources and had really smart friends. So yeah, that's why I chose IWU.
Well, I chose Grace because of my campus visit. I started looking at the school because actually somebody interned at my youth group from Grace College. They were a Grace College student, and I had such an amazing summer with that youth intern. And I said, if this is the type of people that Grace College is creating, then I want to be a part of that community. So I went, and on my visit, I fell in love with the campus. It was hands down the most just down to earth and genuine and friendly campus that I had been to on my campus visits. And my parents fell in love with it as well because of some of the things I mentioned earlier. The 3-year program at Grace made it kind of a deal maker for me and my family, because my sister went to an in-state public school and they were really worried about what the cost of a Christian college was going to look like. But when we found out about the 3-year program, my parents said, this is going to be something that's possible for our family. So we walked to the car after our visit and they looked at me and they said, "You want me to cancel your other college visits?" I said, "Yeah, I think I do." So everything that I learned about Grace on my visit came to be true as a student, and that's why I'm still here today. And yeah, I am very excited and grateful to be a part of this community.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a pretty similar story, actually. I grew up not far from Anderson. My parents still live in Alexandria, Indiana. It is almost a dot on a map, maybe, where there's one stoplight. And I was bound and determined. I'm the fourth of 5 children. So I was bound and determined, I am getting out of Alexandria. I'm getting so far away. I'm going to stay in the state of Indiana because I thought I had to. So I was looking Evansville. I was looking up in Angola, anywhere but here. And then I kind of realized through different leadership stuff in high school that I was meeting a lot of people that I just felt like those are the kind of people I want to be. I want to be that kind of presence in someone's life. I had a math teacher in high school who was really impactful on my life. And I'm not a math person, so the fact that she still liked me is just shocking. But, And then I come to find out that she was an AU alum, and I was like, wow, she's just like the epitome of how I want to live my life and mentor people and be that kind of guiding light for them. And so then I came to AU on a visit, and I just was so frustrated because I was like, it is perfect. This is where I'm supposed to be. Something just washed over me when I walked across campus where I was like, this is home. And I continue to choose AU every day working there because it's the place that made me really believe in myself and what I was capable of. And I see students go through that transition every day where it's almost like one day this switch flips inside of them and they walk around with this new confidence and this new like self-appreciation and self-worth, which is amazing to see. And I love getting to pour into student lives on campus with our student workers and getting to see them walk through their journey at AU too. So I love that. So we have time for maybe another question. Do any of our panelists have questions for the others?
I think really quickly before our time runs out at 7:45, we should each talk about the benefits of staying in Indiana and going to an Indiana college. And I'll just say that Winona Lake, Indiana is a beautiful, beautiful resort town. Come on a visit. We are not in the middle of cornfields. I promise you there's a lot to do here. And my tip for you guys before we sign off tonight is to go on campus visits so that you can understand what the state of Indiana has to offer.
Absolutely. And another big thing about Indiana is in the Midwest, there are a lot of new and exciting job opportunities that are coming. Indianapolis itself is actually a really big technology hub. So for students that are looking to work in technology, we have a lot of students that go and do internships with some pretty big companies in software in Indianapolis, as well as you've got things like the Indianapolis Colts, the Indians, the ICE, all of these teams that are constantly looking for college students to be interns. So I know none of us are super far where those internships are totally possible. And I always just like to say that Midwest is best. It's just, you can't beat the friendliness, and Hoosier hospitality is a real thing. So I echo 100%. Go visit, get on campus, see what it's all about.
So I'm actually the Illinois and Wisconsin counselor for Indiana Wesleyan University. So my job's central to getting people to leave their state to come to Indiana. So a couple of things I talk about is like, Indiana people are nice. Like to describe our niceness, like the whole Indiana tenderloin thing where we're like, oh, we want to give you a sandwich. It's the size of a hubcap. Here you go. But like, that's a real thing. You experienced that here. And I've been on all three of these campuses, and people will treat you like you've been a longtime friend and they don't know you. And they're just like, hey, like, come on, we'll help you out. We'll walk you around campus. Like we'll put our day aside to make sure that you feel welcome here, which is really, really just terrific, especially if you're coming from out of state or you're just used to like not that atmosphere. And our sunsets are to die for. So like, you should really stick around. And like this, I didn't know this was a thing, but sunset chasing is like a normal activity for college students here. Like that's one of those fun things they do. They're like, let's get in a car and we're just going to keep following the sunset. So Indiana has a lot more things to offer than its beauty, but I just wanted to hit on that.
Well, thank you all so much for participating with us. Our contact information is up on the screen. If you have questions that are more specific to each university, feel free to reach out to us via email. Again, we totally encourage you, get out and visit, get on some campuses, because being there and feeling it and interacting with the campus and the community is how you're really going to know if it's the right fit for you. But we really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to come and hear some of the myths. Hopefully we busted a few for you, and we'll see you soon on campus.
Okay, let me just all right, so I just also want to share in thanking our panelists. Number one, thank you so much. That was very enlightening. Please stay, and after you close this window, there'll be a 4-question survey. We really encourage you to fill that out. Excuse me. If you'd like to sign up for more sessions, please check out the schedule at the address right here. And just note again that a recording will be available of the whole session, and they will be available within the week at that address as well. All right, well, thank you so much to our panelists again, and thank you for the attendees. We hope you enjoyed it. Good evening.